Hello everybody, welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well and that you're all having a great day. So I thought I'd start talking a little bit about the future of the cryptocurrency space, and I think I may actually start doing other coins as well. Simply talking about, because we have come so far, Bitcoin as of now, at least the time of me making this video, is around 9 years old. But we have a lot of things that are going to be implemented, a lot of attention that's being brought specifically to Bitcoin. And I thought I'd try to talk at least a general aspect of some of the things that are going to be happening to Bitcoin, where Bitcoin is moving to. And because of all of these things that are happening to it right now, this day or this year in 2018, where Bitcoin is expected to be within the next 10, 12, 15 years. And it's actually quite interesting. So I thought I'd, talk a little bit about this, because everyone's always interested in the future of crypto as far as, should I get into crypto? Does it actually have a future? Why would I get into something now if in a year and a half it's just completely gone? So I'm going to go through a couple of things and yeah, let's start things out. Bitcoin has a lot of, I don't want to say issues. For those who are not aware or are brand new to the cryptocurrency space, Bitcoin is the oldest coin that we have, and as it for some reason is the oldest, it is also actually one of the slowest that we actually have on the market. A lot of other coins that have come out after Bitcoin have had the ability to find what Bitcoin's flaws were, especially if you came out 3, 4, 5 years after Bitcoin, to see what other coins had developed after Bitcoin, and then be able to pretty much build on top of that to make your platform quicker or more robust, or being able to scale a lot quicker. So a lot of the things that are happening on Bitcoin, first and foremost, are the developers or the people who are openly working on Bitcoin, trying to figure out how to make the Bitcoin program a lot quicker, how to make it safer and faster and easier to use for a lot of other people. This is one of the next upgrades that is actually going to be happening. Without reading through the entire thing, is that they're trying to create a new language on the Bitcoin network. Perhaps the most interesting update is the debut of a new language, initially proposed by prominent Bitcoin contributor Peter Woolley, known for designing some of the most radical changes to Bitcoin in recent years, including segregated witness, also known as SegWit, which helped chip away at Bitcoin's scalability problem last year. The idea behind the new language is to add important extra information to keys, or as Bitcoin Core contributor Andrew Chow put it, to put a sane alternative to the problematic account system that was recently ripped out of the software. Simply put, it allows users to name their different accounts, like labeling one as donations and another one as savings. One other significant use case of the language is to make it easier to move keys from one wallet to another. As it stands, if a user tries to move a key from one wallet to another, they might lose some of the information about how the coins can be unlocked and sent to somewhere else. This is very significant. This does not happen very often, but this is great that they're actually finally finding a way to get around this. What this more has to do with, you might be confused as to why you would need an account name or be able to name them differently. One of the things that's happening is we are pretty much in the www era of the cryptocurrency space, where people are trying to figure out some of the easiest ways for people to be able to not only acquire crypto accounts, be able to make them safe, but also the naming thing is also very significant, as in the same discussion where if you are trying to send someone money through the Bitcoin network or any other cryptocurrency network, and you have to copy and paste that very long string of numbers and letters. The idea is to be able to make it so that, especially somewhere in the next couple of years, that people don't have to deal with these anymore, that it's just kind of encoded in whatever you decide to name your wallet, and also being able to have different labeling options to be able to, I want to save this amount and I want to be able to donate this. And people are trying to slowly chip away at it. This has already not been solved by a lot of other cryptocurrency projects, but the people behind Bitcoin now understand that because of how Bitcoin is slow, or how slow Bitcoin is, that they have to update a lot of things to it to be able to make it as secure and as quick and as easy to use as a lot of the other cryptocurrency projects that we currently have floating around in the cryptocurrency space. The next thing is, so this will slowly move us kind of through the years. I'm not starting back at the past, as this is the future of Bitcoin, but it's kind of starting from exactly where we are right now, kind of moving forward. For those who do not know, backed is a thing that is happening through the ICE, or rather ICE, and the New York Stock Exchange, where they are trying to create something that will what they say make Bitcoin as mainstream as Starbucks. One of the main things about crypto specifically, and also Bitcoin, was that for a very long time, people said it would take a huge amount of effort for Bitcoin to be able to go mainstream. In 2017, we were actually able to do this ourselves without the need or help of Wall Street. But as these things continue to move forward and other people start getting into the cryptocurrency game, it is fairly obvious, at least to me, this is my opinion, that Bitcoin is not only mainstream, but I've said before in other videos for those who were watching and or listening, the people specifically who are getting into cryptocurrencies, when you have someone as significant as the New York Stock Exchange getting into cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin in particular, and they're creating something that will allow Bitcoin to be as mainstream as Starbucks, Bakkt will also allow people to use cryptocurrency in Starbucks. And the entire idea behind Bakkt is that people all around the world will be able to use their infrastructure to be able to receive payments and or pay in cryptocurrencies depending on where you are trying to purchase something or get food or buy something inside of a store. I don't think a lot of people get. I understand that a lot of people don't care for traditional finance, but you have to understand how significant this is in the Bitcoin making a complete strong foothold as to where it is right now. I didn't expect that this would happen for I assume we had 3, 4, 5 years in order for this actually to end up happening to Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies as a whole. But the fact that we have so many institutions and companies now completely backing Bitcoin and talking about how great it is and how great it's going to be, and specifically, this for me solidifies Bitcoin's future. Whether Bitcoin will continue to always be the number one coin, no one knows. Anything weird or insane could happen in the cryptocurrency space. No one has any idea. But the fact is, this is the beginning of the solidification for me, at least in my eyes, of the strong and bright future that Bitcoin is going to have. If you move forward a tiny bit, so Lightning Network, depending on what year you're actually watching this, is actually in effect. The Lightning Network is not as large as a lot of people would like it to be, at least at the moment. But the future of Bitcoin is relying heavily or weighing heavily on the Lightning Network, wherein the Lightning Network is believed to allow for Bitcoin to have instant payments, because at the moment, Bitcoin has very sluggish payments. Lightning Network is expected to allow Bitcoin payments to be payment speed measured in milliseconds to seconds, which is something that is needed if you are going to be a mainstream cryptocurrency that people are going to be using. As of now, sometimes it takes around 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 25 minutes, depending on the fee that you actually put into the Bitcoin network in order to send a payment. But if you are able to potentially scale to millions to billions of transactions per second, which is the thing that everyone is looking for. This pretty much Lightning Network, for those who don't know, comes down to speed and also being able to handle the world's transactions. As of now, I think Visa and MasterCard can handle around 50,000 transactions per second. I think that's the number. So typically, if your blockchain can do any faster than that, you are, ahead of the game. You are where you're supposed to be. But the idea that Bitcoin will be able to handle millions to billions of transactions per second across the entire world means that Bitcoin could then potentially be this currency of the internet, as many people have been calling it. Along with Lightning Network, there's also something called Liquid that is also being developed, or I think has actually come out at a certain point. A lot of people have figured out that Bitcoin's initial blockchain, the main blockchain that is there, is very slow. So what people are trying to do now is they are building things called side chains. And these side chains will have different purposes. Some of them will be you'll be able to have a bank that has their side chain on the Bitcoin network, or your own privatized side chains that are also linked to the Bitcoin network that will allow institutions and other people who are trying to use it to be able to have payments that are flowing through the Bitcoin network, but in their own way so that they can monitor transactions and stuff like that as well. These are expected to completely explode in a good way, not, crumbling, within the next couple of years, as everyone is expected to start using other platforms in order to be able to build dApps and or apps and or websites and other high quality things on top of the blockchain. But as Bitcoin is made more robust and quicker and side chains become a very common thing, it is then believed that at some point Bitcoin will be one of the dominant places where people are choosing to build all of these things, which will also only help the Bitcoin network gain in value. As I've said this before, there are a lot of other countries who are coming forward right now and talking about that they are trying to build laws or write laws on certain blockchains. And the moment that they announced this, typically the price of a coin goes up as their blockchain is seen as more valuable. And if eventually we are able to process billions of transactions per second, not even per minute, across the entire world, and we have multiple governments and or banks and or institutions and or companies who are writing things on top of the Bitcoin blockchain or making their own sidechain that is attached to the Bitcoin blockchain, this will be another factor in the rising, I want to say, price of Bitcoin, as the blockchain itself and the coin will essentially become more valuable because more people are using it and building on top of it. The same exact way that the internet now is extremely valuable because of the things that you can build on top of it. If there were no websites, the internet more or less would probably have no value, as no one would be using it. Kind of makes sense. On top of this as well is this will probably not come out for quite some time. I've spoken about privacy before, and I'm trying to get a different view of it, just so I'm not beating the same dead horse when it comes to the privacy factor of Bitcoin. Crypto is going through something right now where people are becoming a little afraid that as Bitcoin transactions can be tracked, there are a number of projects that are floating around where people are trying to figure out exactly how to make Bitcoin private. But the problem with this is, and I've said this before in other videos, is that as Bitcoin becomes more mainstream and more people start to not link up with crypto, integrate Bitcoin and other payment systems into their infrastructure, they are going to want that Bitcoin transactions are transparent, that everyone can see where everything is going, because a number of countries, or all of them at this moment, are very concerned with KYC or know your customer laws, in that they want to make sure that if a crypto transaction is happening, they know exactly where it is going. However, for a lot of people who are in the cryptocurrency space, and especially if you are or consider yourself to be a Bitcoin maximalist, that is someone who believes that Bitcoin should be the only coin, all other coins are crap. It's the nicest way of kind of saying it. They believe that there should be some type of implementation on top of Bitcoin that shadows transactions, so that people, or rather other people, who may want to know what you are doing have no particular idea as to what you are doing. This has been already implemented on a number of other projects. We have a number of other coins that are private privacy or private exclusive, however you kind of want to say it. And I believe that this is only going to continue. I think the privacy coins are going to have a dystopian type future attached to them, where we have a lot of governments and things like that who are calling these coins out by their name, saying that they do not want people in their countries using them. So I think they will be used, but not in the way of traditional cryptocurrencies or the way that Bitcoin is probably going to be used in the future, especially when it comes to things like BAC or the New York Stock Exchange using them. But at a certain point, Dandelion is not the only privacy project that we have being built for Bitcoin. I think we're going to get to a point where Bitcoin transactions are made extremely private. No one will be able to know how to use them. But my belief is that at a certain point, when this does happen, that Bitcoin will already be so mainstream that it will almost be impossible to talk down about it, i.e., as the years go on and Bitcoin becomes more private, becomes more popular, and everyone is using it in, as easily as they're using the US dollar or the euro or the yen or the Canadian dollar. And then we have privacy on top of Bitcoin, meaning all transactions are then masks and no one knows exactly what's happening with them. I think governments will then have a hard time talking down about Bitcoin or trying to get people to stop using it. That's just kind of how I feel about it. We're around the, let's say 2000, late 18, late 2019 at this point, as far as the privacy things go. I think we have maybe even beginning of 2020 is when we'll finally start seeing a lot of these things being pushed onto the network. Lightning Network, as I said already, is already active. It's not as large as it could be or should be right now, but it's expected by the year 2020, it should be completely implemented on the Bitcoin network, meaning by 2020, it is expected that we will have a Bitcoin network that is probably one of the fastest things in the entire world, which will only help to speed up adoption and people building things on top of the Bitcoin network. Kind of interesting, right? On top of this as well, this is also 2018, 19, 20, 20. For those who do not know, Bitcoin has been forked many times. So much so that we actually don't even talk about the forks anymore, because a lot of people They're not the greatest forks in the entire world. A lot of them are completely cash grabs. And there was a huge sentiment around this for a very long time that people believed that people should not be forking Bitcoin. But now a lot of people think that it actually should be forked, in that it proves Bitcoin's dominance. If you created a Bitcoin fork, a lot of the forks that were created at the very beginning said that they were created because they were superior to Bitcoin. They were faster and stronger, and other people would realize how strong they were and would eventually use these hard forks that came from the Bitcoin code as opposed to actually using Bitcoin itself. As time has gone on and people have realized that Bitcoin is still Bitcoin, the number one coin that we have right now, and has not been moved by the other forks, it is believed, let them fork as much as they want. Let them continue to prove, without even knowing it, that Bitcoin is actually the superior coin. Also, it is in the future, it's believed that the cryptocurrency space is going to have millions of coins. We are at a time right now where crypto has around 16, 17, 1800 coins. When I got into cryptocurrency, I think we had maybe 100, maybe somewhere around there. It's expected by the year 2022, 2023 that we're going to have millions of coins and that nearly everything will be able to be digitized. So as these other forks continue to go on, it leads us to a world where there are other markets. And if you choose not to use Bitcoin or Ethereum or XRP or EOS or Cardano or Neo or Litecoin, that you will be able to use any coin that you want, even amongst your friends. That a lot of these forks, this is, I read a lot about the cryptocurrency space and where people believe that the cryptocurrency space is going to go in the future. And it's believed that I'm not going to say the names out loud to call out any particular coin, but it's believed that in the future, if you decided to use any of these with your friends, you would be able to send money back and forth between your friends, because this is what the world's economy is believed that it's going to be. It's believed that everything is going to be digitized and money will be able to be sent in an instant, how you want, when you want, and why you want. I guess it's another way of saying it. But Bitcoin is going to be forked forever, probably. As long as Bitcoin retains its value, there are always going to be many people who are trying to create their own version of Bitcoin, which I guess isn't a bad thing. It's kind of like a legacy in a way. Like I said, a lot of people don't care for this, but this is also something that Bitcoin has, or rather is going to need to look forward to in the future. There are a lot of people who are trying to make as many forks as possible. A lot of it trying to, stay in the spotlight or say that their coin is this, or if you look at a lot of their websites, they talk about how great they are, how much faster they are than Bitcoin. This is what I was talking about when people make these other forks. They talk about, how they've improved or how things have gotten better and they're a lot better than Bitcoin. But these, at least in my view, should not be seen as a bad thing. It kind of only shows how large the cryptocurrency space can get and how we can have potentially a cryptocurrency coin for just about everything. But yeah, this isn't even all of the actual forks that are going to be happening, but this is definitely something that is going to be impacting Bitcoin's future. Because as time goes on, we're going to have a lot more forks that are going to be falling from the Bitcoin tree. Moving forward to, I can't even give it an actual time frame. We've spoken about this before, but I think it needs to be at least mentioned again. We are now in a future where people are talking about that Bitcoin could be the first worldwide currency. I know a lot of people don't really care for the idea of a one world currency in general, but we've had so much attention on Bitcoin that a lot of people who are predicting that in the next couple of years, that Bitcoin could become so large that even by 2022, 2023, it could actually knock out a number of the world's currencies that are currently floating around there. There's also someone who said it about a year ago. He said, by the time we get to around 2021, 2022, and you walk into a Starbucks or any store and you try to pay without Bitcoin, people will laugh at you. And a lot of people thought that was ridiculous. How can anyone say that? That doesn't actually make any sense. And then we had news that the Intercontinental Exchange created something called BACT. They're the owners of the New York Stock Exchange. And then even they mentioned that Bitcoin could become the first world's currency. And that kind of threw everyone for a loop because realistically, mathematically, it could all happen. This is why I said I don't think people understand the significance of a move like this. When you have major institutions, especially think of it this way. The stock market that we have right now is currently in the midst of a 10-year bull run. That means prices have more or less been going up nonstop for 10 years. There have been some dips. There are always dips in the market. but prices are as high as they have ever been. We have a $1 trillion Apple, if I'm not mistaken. I also think Amazon just also hit $1 trillion valuation. I think it was Amazon. During this entire time, while the market is going up and crypto has been going down, we've seen a major shift from people in the New York Stock Exchange talking about how they want to get into crypto. Why would you leave traditional finance when they're in this great period where we're having $1 trillion valuations of companies? Why would you want to get into crypto as the prices are going down? This is at least how I feel about it. You have to read between the lines, try to figure out exactly why this is actually going on. There's a lot of money to be made in crypto. And when we have statements like that from the people who, a large part, they control finance, they're announcing that they're backing Bitcoin and creating other things to make Bitcoin a world leader. That is a very strong indication, at least for me, of where cryptocurrency is at least going. Around the 2019 time still, especially as this thing is actually supposed to launch around the end of this year, November, somewhere around that time. 2019, we're expecting some type of a Bitcoin ETF to be launched and or be approved by the SEC, and people think that it's going to be the CBOE who's going to get it. This is another catalyst. This is something else that is people who are in the cryptocurrency space, deep into the cryptocurrency space, or Bitcoin maximalists, believe that the Bitcoin ETF will be completely detrimental to what Bitcoin is and the idea of Bitcoin. But this is also very heavily in the not immediate future, but the stars for Bitcoin. Whether you want it or not, it is going to happen. The same exact thing with the Bitcoin futures. There were people who did not want them to happen, but Bitcoin's future is going to be heavily tied, it is believed, to the Bitcoin ETF. A lot of people believe that the price of Bitcoin could potentially slide down a lot further with an ETF attached to its name. A lot of other people believe that this will catapult it into the mainstream, as when ETFs are approved and other futures are approved for other organizations, this will lead to a world where we have not only mutual funds and hedge funds, but also retirement funds buying up as much Bitcoin and cryptocurrency as they possibly can in an effort to be able to also make profits as well. If you are running a retirement fund, you want money for the people who are trying to retire in the next couple of years, or 20, 30 years, however long people are putting money into a retirement fund. 2019 is expected to be a shift in the idea of what Bitcoin is. And it all kind of plays into the future of Bitcoin, as in, if we live in a world where traditional finance is accepting cryptocurrencies, and also within the next 2 years, we also get a Bitcoin that is able to, if we get a Bitcoin that is able to transact even just 100,000 transactions per second, let's say to be on the low side, let's say 1 million. We're going to have a lot of other corporations and institutions and other stock exchanges around the world who are going to be announcing that they're also going to be using Bitcoin. There also may be talks about integration of Bitcoin. And I still think the craziest part of all of this is if we end up having countries talking about that they're going to be using Bitcoin, or Bitcoin will actually be their country's main currency. But that is also expected within the next couple of years. Pushing forward to probably one of the most significant things that's expected to happen within our lifetime, oddly enough, is about about 2 years away, more or less 2 years away. Let's say 1.5 years, 2 years away. The reward for Bitcoin is going to be cut in half. I think it says it around here. The 50% reduction in block rewards on the Bitcoin blockchain is only 2 years away. Unless there is an abnormal change in hash rate, the reward for successful Bitcoin miners will drop from 12.5 to 6.25 BTC per block in May 2020. The burning question is, what effect will the block reduction have on the price of Bitcoin? Even more so, if you go to 2024, we have a 3.75 as the reward, which is expected to also be something absolutely nuts. The next 2 years, especially, let's say 2019, as all the infrastructure is being built around Bitcoin and around what Bitcoin is, and around how, using it, allowing institutions to be able to accept it for payments, the Bitcoin volume is expected to completely explode, lightning pending, when we're actually able to handle all of these transactions on the network. When the reward gets cut in half, there are a lot of people who think there's definitely I want to say a 75-25 on this argument. There are a number of people who believe that when Bitcoin's reward gets cut in half, that the price will completely skyrocket, i.e., if there are less Bitcoin being made, the demand for Bitcoin will only continue to go up, and therefore the price of it will also skyrocket or shoot as high as possible, simply because over the next 2 years, if you've been paying attention, the demand for Bitcoin is expected to go up substantially, especially if people in the New York Stock Exchange and other places around the world are talking about integrating Bitcoin. This is an indication for other market players and or people within the market that Bitcoin is going to be big. If this happens over the course of the next 24 months, by the time Bitcoin has become relatively scarce and people are trying to get even fractions of it, it's believed that by 2020, when the reward is even cut in half further and even less Bitcoin is actually created on the network, that many people will be trying as hard as they can to get fractions of Bitcoin, which will have a significant effect on the price. On the other hand, the other 25% believe that this will have no effect at all, that a lot of people on the network will actually stop mining Bitcoin and therefore even using Bitcoin because they're making less Bitcoin. But they usually don't take into account the potential price increase or the network effect or as many extra people getting into the cryptocurrency space. People who see the reward being cut in half only see this as a negative thing, in that they believe that people are only into Bitcoin because of how high the block reward is now. They also don't take into account that a couple of years ago the block reward was 25, and when Bitcoin also got started, the block reward there's a book, multiple books, about people who first got into Bitcoin, and they were actually mining, I think, like 50 or 100 Bitcoin per hour when they first started it. So logically speaking, based on supply and demand, and as Bitcoin is expected to become more popular over the next 2 years, the growth rate of Bitcoin popularity from 2014 to where we are now has been astronomically insane. I don't know if you've realized it. Bitcoin is now not even mainstream. I think it's well beyond that. You can ask pretty much anyone you know, they've definitely at least heard of Bitcoin. So the idea is that as time goes on, people will be trying to acquire little tiny fragments of Bitcoin because Bitcoin is expected to be very expensive by then. I'm not going to give you any real price predictions because I think some of them can be completely astronomical, especially by this time. We have stuff like in the millions of dollars per Bitcoin. No one knows if that's going to happen. Do not assume that you should simply buy into the market because someone else said that the price is going to be 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 million by 2020 within the next 2 years. But this is something that people are desperately looking forward to. I think everyone's kind of holding their breath when it comes to this because one side will eventually be right. Either the Bitcoin price will completely skyrocket or will remain the same, or even essentially maybe even go down because of less demand because the block reward has been cut in half. My view, I'm expecting Bitcoin's price to be something that we never ever thought it could possibly reach. I'm expecting possibly 6 figures by 2020. In anticipation, 2019 I expect to be a very major year for laws coming out, Bitcoin and crypto integration, and 2020 especially. I think this is happening, May 2020. I'm going to assume that by January, February 2020, the crypto Bitcoin price will start to go almost completely insane as people are anticipating this moment. I'm pretty sure, hopefully, I still have this channel, and I will definitely probably have some type of special event as this is happening because there's going to be a major lead up to this moment. People have been talking about this since around 2015, so you can imagine the amount of excitement that's flowing around the reward getting cut in half. We now push to a world, let's say we are around year 2021, 2022. I don't have the exact article. I spoke about it before. There was an economist, I can't remember his name for the life of me, who said that he believes, the entire other argument of people going into Starbucks and using it aside, that they believe by the year 2020, that is 4 years away, 2022, 2023, somewhere around there, that Bitcoin will have become so popular that it'll be used for everything. And I mean everything. You will obviously have the same option to be able to use US dollars or euros or yens or whatever you are using in your country, but people will only want to use Bitcoin as a payment option, the same exact way if you were going to a supermarket and you have the choice between debit or cash, people will tend to use their card as it moves a lot quicker. You don't have to stumble with the cash. It's expected that once we have Lightning and many other implementations that we don't even know about that are supposed to make the Bitcoin network extremely fast, that people will prefer Bitcoin and other crypto. It's expected that the world that we are going to live in will have multiple, that there will not be one winner. This has been quoted even by Bitcoin maximalists who say that they believe that the future will be very bright for a number of crypto projects and not just Bitcoin. But for this video, sake of argument, we're talking specifically about Bitcoin. There was someone who said a couple of weeks ago, they did calculations and they said they believe that by the year 2022, 2023, Bitcoin will have become so big that it will actually, once it reaches the number of around, let's say around $250,000, $250,000 per Bitcoin, they say that it'll be able to replace the United States dollar completely. And at this point, this all ties into the idea that the world's economy and also the U.S. economy is at some point going to collapse because of the debt that is being accumulated by many countries around the world. It's expected that if we should eventually have some type of stock market crash or hyper recession that was even worse than 2008, that many countries around the world will start calling in their debt from other countries. And as this debt, for those who do not know, is never going to be paid back, some countries do pay their debt back. It is very rare. It's expected that the U.S. will not pay, I think there are multiple trillions of dollars worth of debt. This is not going to be paid back. This is the moment where people will come to realize that cryptocurrencies, and then for the sake of argument, Bitcoin in this specific case, is far superior to the US dollar. And this will also cause the price of Bitcoin to rise. As people are already using Bitcoin, people will decide to specifically use Bitcoin over the US dollar. This also leads us to a world where, if you've been paying attention, like I said before, if we end up having something where Bitcoin is completely private and all transactions are private, I guess that's the word I'm going to use once again. If transactions can't be tracked and or traced and no one knows who's actually using these transactions and Bitcoin takes over the US dollar, think of what kind of future we would live in. This is a world where no one knows what you're doing, where you're going, what you're buying, who you're paying, what kind of entertainment you are, when you're going to the movies, when you're buying something for a friend. This also leads us into a world, and I said it before and I'm going to try and say it as nice again. There's a certain time of year where you have to pay something. And if transactions are completely private and the world is using Bitcoin, the thing that you normally have to pay every single year, if you are an adult, it's expected that people will simply stop paying them. And no one knows what the economic consequences are. I think a lot of people aren't talking about it because maybe it's not going to happen, potentially. Like I said, no one 9 years ago knew what Bitcoin would become today, that we would have this entire infrastructure and this world built around a code that someone wrote 9 years ago. So to be fair, no one really knows what's going to happen in the next 5 or 6 years, but this is kind of the idea behind it. If we enter a world where Bitcoin is everything, then really no one knows. Like there's never been a time in history where there wasn't a centralized government or entity who was in control. And if this coin right here can stop that from happening, and everyone has control over their own lives and money again, think of what kind of a world we would be living in. It's very, very interesting to think about. Like, take like 5 minutes and actually sit down and think of a world where no one controls your finances anymore and you control it completely. It's very, very interesting to kind of think about. When you have people like the Coinbase CEO, to be fair, this guy does hold a lot of Bitcoin. I told you guys that before. Whenever someone is, the CEO of Coinbase or the CEO of Gemini or the people behind Binance, whenever they talk about a particular thing, they always probably have a large amount of it themselves. But the predictions, I think, are not spot on, but I think they're quite interesting to think about. We are now, so if you haven't noticed, we've jumped a bit further into the future. Not even saying 15 years, I'm going to say 10 years. I can see a world, if you've watched any of the things that have been happening in other countries and the other discussions that they've been having and the other like meetings that the world leaders have been having. You know, a lot of these are made public. A lot of them do have like open forums, or they have places online where you can actually watch. A lot of countries are quite they're open to cryptocurrencies. A lot of them are accepting it, but a lot of other ones are asking, is crypto a threat? Is Bitcoin a threat? Is Bitcoin going to be a problem? If we have a lot of predictions that state mathematically, just from the amount of people who are constantly getting into the cryptocurrency system, think of the amount of people where we are right now. Think of 2 years ago, how many people, even if you knew what the word Bitcoin was, you can probably ask, like I said, anyone that you know what Bitcoin is, and they'll have a general idea of what it is. Imagine 4 years from now. Imagine 15 years from now. The predictions that we have where Bitcoin is taking over the US dollar is extremely significant. And these are discussions that are actually happening a lot right now. Andreas Antonopoulos has been very vocal about this. And I told you, I think he has, how do I say this nicely? He's very brave. I think that's a nice way of saying it. The way that he talks to governments and government leaders, he's been doing this for quite a couple of years. He sits in front of them and tells them that your currency, the money that you're using right now, is going to die, and Bitcoin is going to replace it. And over the next, I guess, 15 years, you know, it's a long time, but it's not really that long. If you look at the grand scope of things, we now are in this particular future, if you will, of Bitcoin completely taking over the world. And then we also get into not so much a price prediction, but I always think it... Sorry, there's something else. I don't know if you guys even heard that. Anyway, the point is, to finish kind of all of this off, it's expected that should Bitcoin follow through with all of these things, should all these things happen, should the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ and other places around the world continue to hug Bitcoin and foster its growth and allow Bitcoin ETFs and futures and exchange traded funds and mutual funds and hedge funds and all these other things are made completely legal, and many people get into the cryptocurrency space and specifically Bitcoin, and that it does, if we go to a price of $1 million per Bitcoin, this is also a future where Bitcoin has passed by, logically, $250,000 and has taken over the US dollar. Possibly the craziest number that I've heard over a while. Let's say this is the number that I've heard from the year 2030, is that Bitcoin will eventually hit $1 million per coin. Like I said, take these all with a grain of salt. No one knows exactly what the price of Bitcoin is going to be. Like I always say, to be fair, when Bitcoin was half a cent and then it hit $1 and then it hit $10, people in forums and online and other places on Reddit, people were announcing that Bitcoin's price would eventually hit $20,000, and people deleted their threads because they thought they were crazy. They thought they were spamming. They thought something was, how dare you assume that Bitcoin's price can hit 20,000? Apparently, mathematically, 12 years from now, it is believed that if the entire world is using Bitcoin, that just one Bitcoin will be worth $100 million, which means that even 0.01 Bitcoin would equal $1 million. Once again, that does not mean telling you to go out there and run and buy Bitcoin. It's just interesting to think of where Bitcoin is going. There are tons of other projects that are also happening. A lot of people don't really know. A lot of them are still in the dark, if you will. We don't know about every single upgrade. A lot of upgrades have been announced and actually haven't ended up happening. So a lot of the things that we end up hearing about now, I think it's because they're actually in production or people are actually working on them. They're trying to get them going. There are many other things that I'm going to assume are going to be implemented on Bitcoin, especially over the next 2 years. Tons of forks are going to be happening. No one knows what the exact future of Bitcoin is. Rather, I'll say it that way. But it's a huge indication of where crypto is going when you have major players getting into the space. We still don't know at the time of me making this video what their plans are. A lot of people say that the New York Stock Exchange only has nefarious plans when it comes to Bitcoin, that they plan on suppressing the price. Other people say, even other economists who don't agree with the move, or they say that, they're definitely going to try and control it, but the control that they state is going to be trying to control the price, or rather control the supply so that they own the most, so that they can raise the price up, so that these people can eventually become some of the world's first trillionaires. I think that's going to do it for this video. I'll try and it would be interesting if I could like do like another one of these in like 2 years. I'm interested to see, especially in 2019, where Bitcoin goes, what happens to Bitcoin, if Bitcoin remains the number one in the market. And if we hit a Bitcoin price of $100 million, just think of, this will mean that the 6,000 that Bitcoin is floating around will be an absolute bargain. I mean, 0.01 will be $63 or something like that. Kind of weird to think about being able to make, or rather put in $63, making $1 million, but that's exactly what happened. You know, I'm sure you've all seen that thing. If you put $100 into Bitcoin 7-8 years ago, you would have like $70 million. I guess it's kind of the same exact thing. All right, everyone, let me know what you think about the future of Bitcoin. I know there are a lot of people out there who do not like Bitcoin, people who are obsessed with Bitcoin, a lot of other people who may be indifferent or may have another coin that they think could potentially take over the entire world. As always, hope you all enjoyed. Hope you all are having a great day, morning, afternoon, and or evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. Thank you once again for watching and or listening. I think Bitcoin has a very intense future ahead of it. And I will talk to you all soon. See you.